Is the Georgia-Florida rivalry a top 5 rivalry in college football? That's what I'm going to be talking about today. I think so, and I think a number of people watching this video are going to think so as well. But for some reason, there's a lot of talk nationally across the country that this is more of an overrated rivalry in college football. I don't know or understand where people get that. Maybe because Georgia's kind of dominated this rivalry for the past several years, right? They had a 3-game winning streak, 17, 18, 19. They lost to the Gators in 20, beat the Gators soundly the last 2 years, and most people think Georgia will win again down in Jacksonville this weekend. So this is a rivalry that at times is either dominated by one team or the other. It's not kind of back and forth like a lot of rivalries are. But of course, Florida owned the 90s and into the early 2000s. Georgia won here and there, 04 and 07 with Mark Richt. 12 was a big one. There's a lot. And recently, Georgia's taken over. They actually lead the series 55-44-2. So they've got they're up 11 games in the series. But if you think just off the top of your head, best rivalries in college football, Army-Navy is up there. I think it's a tad overrated, and I've been to that game. I went to the game in 2005 up in Philadelphia, Army-Navy. It was amazing. The pageantry, the atmosphere, it was electric. I get why. A lot of people think it's number one, but there's no national championship implications, right? So that kind of takes it down a notch for me. The Iron Bowl, right up there. I would put Alabama, Auburn over Ohio State and Michigan, but it's those two. Those two are the biggest. Then you have your Texas and Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, Southern Cal, Notre Dame, so on and so on, right? But the one thing that stands out about Georgia, Florida is that you cannot lose this game and have any type of a season after that. It just can't happen. We've seen the loser of the Iron Bowl, go on to play and win a national championship in 17. We've seen last year the loser of the Michigan-Ohio State game went on to play in the playoffs. Ohio State lost to Michigan last year. They still made it in the playoffs. That's just not something you see from Georgia, Florida. If you're Florida and you lose to Georgia, season's over. This season's over. If you're Georgia and you lose to Florida, your season's over. Now, Georgia can lose this game in Jacksonville and still win the East, but we've never seen it happen, right? This is a make or break game in seasons. If you go down to Jacksonville and lose, more often than not, you're not winning the East. You're not doing anything of significance the rest of the way. That's how important this game is. And just the feel of it, when this week hits, well, these 2 weeks, because they both get a bye, but end of October, Halloween is rolling around. Georgia, Florida's here. You can feel it in the air a little bit, and that's just something you can't really feel at other places. The stadium is split right down the line, red and black, blue and orange. Now, you get the same similar type of feel at the Cotton Bowl for the State Fair, but it's a fair. It's not a party. That's a little fair. It kicks off at noon. Cool, whatever. I know it's a big rivalry, but it's not the same as Georgia, Florida. Georgia, Florida is bigger than Texas, Oklahoma. That's going to trigger a lot of people, but I say bigger in the sense that it means more to the city of Jacksonville. It means so much to these two fan bases. They're both passionate, bitter rivals, and it's a party. People go down there. They have a weekend of it. They go to the beaches. They go to Halloween parties. It's a whole thing. It is crazy. If you've never been down there for this game, you have to check it out. It is something completely different than what you're going to see anywhere else, and that includes Texas and Oklahoma. Now, the stadium being down there, it's tough to work in, but it is a great time if you're going down there to experience the game, and it's completely different. But the rivalry is there. These two teams are always going to play. They're always going to hate each other, and I think if you polled most Georgia fans, they would say that Florida is the biggest game of the season. It's Georgia's biggest rival. Now, if you're probably 55, 60 years and older, maybe you would say it's Georgia Tech, right? The old Georgia fans, Georgia Tech is number one. Then it's Florida. Then it's probably a gap, Auburn and everyone else. But most Georgia fans would say it's either Georgia Tech or Florida. And I think most Georgia fans think Florida is their biggest rival. And if you're Florida, if you're honest with yourself, you would say Georgia is bigger than Florida State. That's just how it is. So when you have two teams, their biggest rivals are each other, and you're playing in a stadium that's half full, the environment is completely different. It's at 3:30 every year. So rolling into the fourth quarter, the sun's kind of setting. It's orange. I mean, it's just a great atmosphere for a football game. And if you're winning, the win feels different. You get to continue the party that you're having. But, Georgia is leading the series. That's why it's Georgia, Florida, not Florida, Georgia. Georgia is leading the series, and they might be running away with it. Florida's got to get this under control, and Florida has to continue to build on the program that Billy Napier has built, or else they're not beating Georgia anytime soon. They don't have the talent. They don't have the coaching staff. They don't have the depth. I want to say they don't have the resources, but they're right there. Florida should be better than what they are. They're not even in the top 25 right now. They're right outside it, and that should never be a thing. The Florida Gators should be they should live in the top 15 and be in the top 10 most of the time. That's what type of program they are. They should be there, but they're not where they need to be. Georgia is. And I do think that if Georgia continues to roll through Florida year after year after year, the significance of the rivalry will kind of drop a little bit. But at the same time, it's always going to mean something. I think it's a top 5 rivalry in college football. I think South Carolina, Clemson, in-state battle is great. Oregon State, there's a lot of them, right? Michigan State is big. I used to love Oklahoma, Nebraska. That rivalry is gone, unfortunately. As a kid, I thought that was a top 5 rivalry in the game, was Oklahoma and Nebraska. But Texas A&M is huge. Florida State, Miami might be on the comeback. That you can make the case that was a top 5 rivalry in college football not too long ago, but that one has dropped a little bit because both teams, before this season, just been bad. I mean, Florida State's had a terrible run, and Miami hasn't been relevant in college football in 20 plus years. I hope that triggers a lot of Miami people because it's the truth. Miami is thought of still as this great program, but it's really not. They've had one dynasty and almost another, but that dynasty was in the late 80s, I guess, right? A little before my time. But Georgia, Florida is a rivalry that I think most people from a national perspective don't understand as much as they should. The casual college football fan thinks this is a cool, fun game, but I don't think they know the importance, and I don't think they know the hatred. There's more hatred there than people think. And you go back to the 2007 game where Georgia's dancing on the field. They needed that win badly. That just triggered a lot of Florida people, including Urban Meyer. The next year, they just throttled Georgia. They called the timeouts at the end. It can get a little dirty, too. I think 2010, Aaron Murray's freshman year, that went into overtime. A.J. Green took the game over. They ended up losing. 2012 was a big one. And 2011, Jarvis Jones, I think, sacked Florida again just now. Dude's in his 30s now. I think he's still sacking Florida. But the moments have been there. The gains have been tremendous over the years. But, there have definitely been some blowouts as well. So you get a little bit of everything in this rivalry. And again, playing it at a neutral site pushes it towards the top for me. The hatred there, the bordering states, they recruit against each other. There's something very special about this rivalry. It's the biggest party in the world. People aren't supposed to say that anymore, right? But it is the biggest party in the world. There's nothing like this atmosphere, this rivalry. It is kind of on another level, and I just don't think people appreciate it as much. Maybe it's because Georgia's won 5 out of 6, could be 6 out of 7 coming up, and maybe Kirby Smart is ruining this rivalry a little bit. Maybe Steve Spurrier ruined it a little bit in the 90s when he just beat Georgia every single year, it felt like. But Georgia eventually had to get over that hurdle and beat Florida, and Florida has to do the same thing now. They have to get over that hump. Billy Napier has to beat Georgia at some point. I don't think it's going to happen this weekend. I don't know when it's going to happen. They have to get a lot better if they want to beat Georgia anytime soon. But if they do in the next several years, it's going to be an upset. The Georgia train is rolling, and the Florida train is still trying to get up there. But if you want to say Auburn, Alabama is ahead of Georgia, Florida, I get it. If you want to say Ohio State, Michigan is above Georgia, Florida, I get it. Army, Navy, same way, where it's very cool, and the pageantry and the atmosphere, it all makes it an elite, great rivalry. But in my opinion, I wouldn't put it with the rest, because you're never going to have a top 5, top 10 matchup with national championship, implications on the line. I think Southern Cal, Notre Dame felt like it was a bigger rivalry in the past. I know I'm missing some, but I want to see Miami, Florida State be something again. I want to see that be a top 5, top 10 matchup like it used to be. Texas, Oklahoma, I guess, it's right up there with Georgia, Florida. But as far as top 5 rivalries, Georgia, Florida is in there. Make no mistake. If you disagree, you're just wrong. And I hope you learned something in this video. Appreciate y'all for watching. Sign up to our free newsletter. That link is down below. You can read all the stories we got over on Dog Post. It's Florida week, so we've got a lot of content. We want to make sure that y'all are heading over there and checking it all out. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you over on the website.